so it was November 24th, 2015, which was Thanksgiving. It was also my father's birthday. And being a holiday, people would give me their money or whatever. So, I had to go get other people's drugs for the holidays and stuff like that. And I went to Indianapolis and picked up 15 grams of heroin. I'm supposed to be at my grandma's house. I come back to Hartford City and I'm surrounded by 10 police cars. Buddy was driving me. Jump out of the car and I carried all my drugs, and it was like a plastic tube, kind of looked like a pipe. And I got out of the car real fast and I threw the drugs, and 50 yards. And they hit in the top of the tree, and they came flying right back at me, right in the middle of the yard. And they found the drugs. Of course, 2 other people told on me, so it was over. Like, no freedom, no hope. I'm 42 years old. I'm facing 18 years in prison, plus habitual drug felon. So at 42 years old, I'm basically facing life in prison.
Was there a transformative moment? Was it kind of like a journey that kind of got you to finally get serious about your recovery and, start realizing, hey, I can't do this anymore. I got to start making some changes?
In jail, the level of dope sick that I was vomit, diarrhea, couldn't hold anything down. My whole body broke out in rashes and hives. So, it was like, I'm going to kill myself. I'm just going to end all this pain and misery. And 10 days went by. Dude, I'm weak. And they popped my door, and it took 2 police officers kind of to guide me and walk me down a hallway. They get me to this room, and there's a gentleman in the room that I recognized that went to a local church. When I got a little bit of recovery, I attended some church services. This gentleman was there at one of them, and he was sitting there, and he looked at me and he said, Brian, he said, if you died tomorrow, where would you go? And look, bro, I didn't tell anyone I was going to kill myself, right? I ain't talked to no one. And I tell you what, it hammered me. I broke. I started bawling, dude, and he led me to the Lord right there. So yeah, a little bit about my story, I guess. I started using when I was a teenager. I was class president, probably, voted most likely to succeed when I was in high school. But around my junior year, I started, hanging in another county at my aunt's house, and ran into some people that were drinking and smoking weed. Back in my day, I graduated in 92. I just turned 50, so I'm a little older. And, it was alcohol and marijuana was the thing, when I was in high school. And it was really, I just got separated from the crowd, I was in, and partying, was a funner lifestyle to me. And I went to Vincennes University, here in Indiana, out of high school, and that's when I first tried cocaine, and definitely got hooked on cocaine. And one thing about that drug back in, I guess it would have been 1993, is being from a small town, people, cocaine wasn't really available. So me as an 18-year-old kid, I was bringing, 4 ounces of cocaine back to my hometown, and the amount of money that I was making selling drugs, I really just, the American dream to me was, making money, and I was making money. And so really my ambitions, my goals of what I wanted to be, I just lost all that, easy money.
Yeah, wasn't laced with fentanyl back then either, right?
Yeah, right.
Right.
You didn't have to worry about Narcan or, somebody overdosing or whatever that looked like. You can go to the bar and be the life of the party, center of attention.
Yeah.
And I just really got trapped in that lifestyle. And then the only people I surrounded myself with was the like-minded people doing the wrong things. And it was. I got my first felony when I was I think I was maybe just turned 21, 22, uh, dealing cocaine. And all that really did is make me be more careful not to get caught. So I really, didn't want to stop using. I didn't want to stop selling drugs because I think I was addicted to the lifestyle as I was addicted, to the substance.
So that, Brian, that journey to starting to use, right? You said that you started out, your circle changed, right? And you started out, it was some more experimentation for the sake of partying and looking for identity. Is that kind of what drove your decision to use, or was there like a traumatic event? I know some people have, really difficult, upbringings and, whatnot. And then as a result, they start to use to cope with the pain. Or was yours more looking for acceptance and trying to find your fit?
Well, I mean, to be honest, like I was class president, so I was popular, and I fit into whatever crowd I think, that I was hanging with, and it was really, I played sports. I was, I got most varsity letters. I got cut from the basketball team, and I always like challenged myself, and I didn't think that I was good enough, in certain areas, or I wanted to be the best. So I think it was kind of an escape for me that I could, I don't know, get away, and to me, it was a good time. I like being crazy.
You've been a pretty driven person. I mean, obviously, class president, sports. I mean, you've got to be driven for all that. And so you said drugs was like an escape to kind of, I guess, get a break, from the drive. Yeah, cut loose, if you will.
I don't know, but I've always been driven, first one there, last one to leave, give it my all. Like, grew up in church, knew right from wrong. Both of my sisters were homecoming queen, middle child, but, the black sheep, no substance in my family. I didn't see trauma. I had a great upbringing. It was just bad choices and bad decisions. That's my story. Is I did those things. I made those choices, and then once that I found that crowd, I just really didn't want to leave that lifestyle. And then as the bad became worse, and then I think I was in a car accident, got put on pain medication, and then I started switching substances. So I quit smoking marijuana, and I stopped doing cocaine, and then I started on pills, and everyone knows when the Opanas came out, and everyone was on Opanas and the pain medication, and then they got rid of Opanas, and then I went through a phase to where I was partying with someone, and they were manufacturing methamphetamines, and and I learned how to do that. Next thing I'm manufacturing methamphetamines, don't even really like meth, but I didn't have my opiates, and then I found heroin, and when I found heroin, it was like that was the love of my life. Like I didn't want anything else. I dropped absolutely every drug and everything, and went to heroin. So this was my 20s, my 30s. I caught another felony, and now I'm 42 years old. I tried rehab in Indianapolis at Fairbanks in 2013. Actually, I stole my mom's credit card. It was laying on top of her microwave, and it was one of those. I had every intention of paying that credit card back. Like the the sickness we get in our mind. It's like I got into their information and I had it changed addresses. Like I thought I was slick, you know what I'm saying? And it ran up $5,000. Well, they ended up, finding out. My dad, I was living in somebody's garage, and my dad, he found me and he was like, "I'm taking you to jail." And I about jumped out of a running vehicle. Was like, you know what I'm saying? "You ain't taking me to jail." And he was like, "Well, jail or rehab." I went to rehab. So the first seed that, kind of what recovery even looked like is I went to Fairbanks, and they placed me on Suboxone there at Fairbanks. I did their program, lived in their sober living for, I think it was 6 months. I was in an unhealthy relationship, at the time. And, I wasn't done. And as soon as, I would get I came back to Hartford City after my sober living, and I started the 12-step program. So I heard about a sponsor and 90 meetings in 90 days. And we rode on this thing called the druggy buggy, and, they took us to meetings. So I kind of, got the feel for what that looked like in 2013. But I got 90 Suboxone for $3, and they go for $20 a piece. And I didn't, that criminal mentality and everything. I came back to my hometown. Somebody said, "Hey, I'll give you $1,500 for your whole script, and it's off to the races." I had a back disease, anxiety disorder, major depression, all from substance use, car wrecks, just craziness. I was arrested one time for the methamphetamine, and I ate 3.5 grams of meth on my arrest and had a heart attack. And and that didn't stop me. My grandma and my whole family comes over, and I always wanted to look like I didn't have a problem. And my thing was, I didn't want to hurt them. I didn't care about hurting myself. But the most hurtful thing is that I was hurting, the other people around me. And I really basically I just couldn't stop. I didn't know how, but I think I was getting to a point to where I wanted the pain to go away. You know what I'm saying? Using wasn't fun. Like the fun was over in my 20s. You know what I'm saying? So it, that's where it got, bro.
Yeah. So what transpired? I mean, for you to finally, because you said you're a couple felonies, switching drugs. I mean, going through all these different circumstances, and none of it really broke through, right? Even going to rehab at threat of jail. I mean, none of that really broke through. So what was there a transformative moment, or was it kind of like a journey that kind of got you to finally get serious about your recovery and, start realizing, hey, I can't do this anymore. I got to start making some changes.
Yeah, so it was November 24th, 2015, which was Thanksgiving, was also my father's birthday. And being a holiday, people would give me their money or whatever. So, I had to go get other people's drugs for the holidays and stuff like that. And I went to Indianapolis and picked up 15 grams of heroin. I'm supposed to be at my grandma's house. I come back to Hartford City, and I'm surrounded by 10 police cars. Buddy was driving me. Jump out of the car, and I carried all my drugs in like it was like a plastic tube, kind of looked like a pipe. And I got out of the car real fast, and I threw the drugs, and I mean 50 yards, and they hit in the top of the tree, and they came flying right back at me right in the middle of the yard. I mean, I could do that a million times, bro, and it would never happen again. And they found the drugs, of course. Two other people told on me, so it was over. Like, no freedom, no hope. I'm 42 years old. I'm facing 18 years in prison, 18 years in prison plus habitual drug felon. So at 42 years old, I'm basically facing life in prison. So, I'm probably using 2 grams of heroin a day. I'm not an IV user. Um, because that was my control. You know what I'm saying? I'm not like the person sticking a knee. You know what I mean? That was the sickness in my mind that I still had some sort of control over, what I was doing. No difference, whatever. It was just that's where I was, in my thinking. But, in jail, the level of dope sick that I was vomit, diarrhea, like couldn't hold anything down. Like it was absolutely crazy how sick that I was. My whole body broke out in rashes and hives. And, I'm laying in a drunk tank, vomit and diarrhea, like all over me, bro. Like I was laying you know what I'm saying? There's no lower rock bottom than laying in your own puke and feces. You know what I'm saying? And that's where I found myself. So, it was like, I'm going to kill myself. I'm just going to end all this pain and misery, and my mom and dad ain't going to have to go through this. I got a son. I had a 22-year, today he's 22, but at the time, I think he was around 14 or, he's a teenager, wrote me letters to stop using drugs. They tried to have interventions and those things. And, I was just lost. Good person, but just really lost. And so I didn't know how I was going to kill myself. I thought about hanging myself. There was really no means. You know what I'm saying? In a drunk tank, they'd put you in the turtle suit or whatever that looked like. And so I was like, I'm going to starve myself. I'm not going to eat and I'm not going to drink because I know that will work. So, especially with no nutritions that I wasn't getting. So I think 9 or 10 days went by, and here, dude, I'm weak. Like I just don't care. Gave up, and that they popped my door, and it took two police officers kind of to guide me and walk me down a hallway, and they get me to this room, and there's a gentleman in the room that I recognize that went to a local church in 2013. When I got a little bit of recovery, I attended some church services, tried out some different meetings, and this gentleman was there at one of them, and I think I did an altar call, back in 2013 because I really did want something different. I just really didn't know how to go about you know getting that something different. It wasn't like mind or in my heart yet. And he was sitting there and he looked at me and he said, Brian, he said, if you died tomorrow, where would you go? And look, bro, I didn't tell anyone I was going to kill myself, right? I ain't talked to no one. He didn't say, Brian, are you okay? What are you going through? He said, if you die tomorrow, where will you go? And I tell you what, it hammered me. I broke. I started bawling, dude, and he led me to the Lord right there in that room. I go back to my cell. All of a sudden, I got a little bit more energy. I cry. I don't even know where tears came from. I was so dehydrated, and then all of a sudden, bro, I started just to feel better, and I wanted to take a shower and clean all that mess off of me. I'm ready to stand up. You see what I'm saying? I stood up, I took a shower, and I put my hands on the wall, and that bead of water that was coming down, it was hitting me right in the forehead. And I cried out and I said, God, if you're real, because, I was hurting. And I said, if you're real, I'll go anywhere. I'll do anything, and I'll say anything, and I'll glorify you. Just take this, just take this from me because I can't. And that was the start of my journey of, he touched my heart in in my vomit, in my diarrhea, in my mess. Someone I had no relation to this thing that ever happened to me, and it's really hard. You know what I'm saying? I still, I'll tear up. I share my testimony, and every time I get to that part, I tear up because I go right back to where that was. You see what I'm saying? So and I was touched, bro. And he took my back disease. He took my anxiety disorder. He took my depression. He took my hives and my rashes. The withdrawal and everything. I still experienced that for about 25 days. Put me in population, and a group called Narcotics Anonymous came to the jail, and I got some pamphlets. I was on disability. They lowered my bond to $1,000. I bonded myself out of jail. My mom and dad had my card, which they didn't want to bond me out because they probably thought I was going to kill myself or overdose and die. And they helped me, bro, and then I started seeking that thing called recovery, still knowing that I'm going to prison or what I thought I was going to prison, but I just got a touch, and I was more free than I've ever been in my life, and I wanted to just really pursue that freedom and let people know like what happened to me in that cell, and knowing that I was no one special, and if that could happen for me, it could happen for someone else. So I really that I got set on a journey to let people know like what happened to me. I ended up going and getting treatment. Went to a 6 8 month program like IOP, intensive outpatient programming, completed IOP, really learned tools, coping skills, like a lot of the whys of maybe like why I was the way I was, my beliefs, my values, you know, my wants, my needs. Like learned a whole lot about myself, what recovery looked like. Started going to meetings. Became a leader of Celebrate Recovery in the hometown that I was at 6 months, and started sharing my testimony at 6 months, which is that's early in your recovery, but I was going to 3 meetings a day, and I was really searching this God who touched me in that jail. Like I gotta plug my phone in, bro. But but like I pursued that thing for real. You know what I'm saying?
So you talk about, as you're coming out of jail, right? You've got a lot of work to clean up the mess, right? I mean, you're in your 40s, multiple felonies, and starting to face some of that stuff coming out. And so, like recovery, I mean, we go to celebrate, we go to church, the Lord deals with the spiritual, but the natural man's got a lot of work to do, right? And trying to pick up some of the pieces. And so, man, what did that look like for you? Now, I guess before we get too detailed into that, you said you were facing some substantial prison time, right? And how did that pan out? I mean, did you end up doing any substantial time in jail after as a result of all that, or?
So the crazy part of that right there is, it was like 6 or 8 months. I go to court, and like in that 6 or 8 month time, like I was on fire for recovery. I was on fire for my faith. Like I was, you know what I mean? I was really sold out, a changed person. Like my heart changed. And when my heart changed, my thinking changed, my language changed, the things that I listened to changed, the things I was looking at changed. And other people really started to notice that I wasn't this same selfish dude that I used to be. I was networking in other counties, so there wasn't a whole lot of recovery in my county. So I had to go to multiple counties and in multiple places and churches to try to seek out that whatever recovery looked like for people. And in doing that, I've now networked several different recovery groups: NA, AA, Celebrate Recovery, Better Life, Brianna's Hope. And when I went to court, like all these people went to court with me. So there was like 50 some people, bro, on a Monday that came to court with me. And I sat down, and my bags were packed to go to prison. They took my house, they took my car, they took my clothes, like everything that I owned, they seized and got rid of. You know what I mean? So I had nothing, and not a bed, not a place to go, and I'm with my lawyer. They ended up giving me a plea bargain, which was 6 years in the Department of Corrections, which was an amazing deal. With not being charged with habitual or whatever, it's like, man, I was so grateful, because when they did my pre-sentence investigation, I mean, it's just a booklet, and you got to sit there, and it's page after page after page after page, and it's like, man, they just make and I earned that stuff, bro. And the judge reads off the stuff. Mr. Blevins, I sentence you to 6 years. And he stopped, and he said, I don't know why I'm doing this. He said, but I'm going to let you write your own prescription for your recovery. And paused, and I didn't even know what he was talking about, what he was saying. And I'm looking at my lawyer, and my lawyer, he didn't know what he was saying. He said, I'm going to give you an opportunity to do this on home detention. And I was are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And he said, do you have anywhere to do house arrest? Well, my mom and dad was there. And my mom and dad said, yeah, he could do house arrest. And my mom and dad were done with me. Like, in that 6 months time, they seen such a huge change in my life. You see what I'm saying? That they allowed me to stay in their home after I stole, after I did all those things. So, my mom and dad, stood up for me, and I was given 6 years of house arrest instead of serving time that I deserved. So that kind of like, that was crazy, bro. That was all God.
Yeah. Wow. So what did that look like? I mean, house arrest, right? I mean, it's always crazy how the judges they sentence you, then they pause. you know, and I have several friends that have walked through that. It's like you've got 10 years, but then we're going to suspend it all. But and it's like, yeah, the heart drops. I mean, I imagine that moment. I mean, it's just crazy. So, so what did that look like putting the pieces back together, right? So employment, I mean, some of those real challenges, multiple felons, like man, how did all that start to pan out for you? I mean, so you did 6 years home detention, house arrest. Did you end up doing all 6 years on house arrest, or did they, what did that what happened there?
So I'm on disability, right? And I'm getting like $1,500. So I was always functioning, working drug addict. I drove a semi. Like, I've had great jobs, so I was highly functioning in my addiction and that lifestyle. So I paid into disability, so I got quite a bit of money, and being on disability, to me, I knew God had healed me, and I wasn't disabled anymore. So, like, there was a thing inside of me that all of a sudden I wanted to work. So I decided to go back to college, and went to Ivy Tech to be a drug addictions counselor. So, I go back for human services, do like 6 months. I made the dean's list. And then I get to this part of college that's ethics. And in those ethics, like, you're not allowed to have relationships with people. So everything that I believe, and everything, the ethics of a professional uh, counselor or whatever, are quite the opposite. And I knew I couldn't lie. You know what I'm saying? I was in an honest place in my life. So I had to drop out of college, and pursuing something, and, you know, and you know, God told me to drop out. He was like, you know, this ain't for you, and I'm like, that's crazy. You know, I just made the dean's list here. You know what I mean? And I dropped out of college, and it was the next day. You know, I'd been ministering online for like almost a year. You know, I'm a leader in the recovery rooms. I had a guy that I graduated high school with. He called me that next day that I dropped out of college, and he said, "Brian," he said, "is this stuff for real?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he was like, "I've been watching you, and you give me hope. You encourage me, like your story and your testimony and the passion that you have." He's like, "Man, I want to offer you a job." And I'm like, I want anything, right? And he's like, "I got a job for you as a barista." I didn't even know what that was, but it's serving coffee. And, you know, in the rooms of recovery, bro, coffee's king. So I'm like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, let's do that. So I go to Portland, Indiana, you know, here in, and that, you know, my house arrest approves me to get a job, and they're happy, and they're encouraging me, and they're proud of me. So my first day to go to my job, I walk in, and it's a trailer like you would buy elephant ears out of. So I'm selling coffee out of you know, coming from being the man with all the money, and you know, the people and the cars and houses and stuff, to serving somebody a cup of coffee was a very humbling thing. But this is where I learned forgiveness at, because when I walked in that trailer, there stood the law enforcement agent that was drug task force, that put me behind bars, that, you know, chased me on high speed pursuits, the bad guy that, you know what I'm saying, that I just absolutely despised this guy. Like, I thought he was a bad cop, and you know what I'm saying, being a criminal. You know what I'm saying? That's just how your view of police officers are. What, you know, and there he stands. So on my first day, I'm looking at the one guy that I would say, you know, if I despised anyone in the world, like, I wouldn't. Well, so he wasn't on the police force anymore, and he took a position within this agency. So he was like in ownership of that coffee shop. Had no idea, you know. So I'm like, and that's what I was like. What is he freaking doing here, dude? Like, you know, I'm not doing this. And he says, hold on. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, hold on." And we went for a ride, and he said, "Brian," he said, "I've been following you too." And he said, "I'm proud of you." And I was like, come on. Like, you know, it took me away, and he said, "Man, you can do this, and not only can you do this, you're going to help other people, you know, that's been down your path, to be able, you know, to encourage and uplift them." And you know, he started pouring into me, dude, and then, you know, I'm selling coffee. Uh, it was like a couple weeks, they opened up this new shop in Upland, which is beside Ivanhoe's. Great little restaurant, and Upland, where Taylor University is. And they thought, since I started, you know, I started a ministry in this time called Hope House, which was to change the people, places, and things in your life, you know, you using Christ. So I started a faith based ministry. They thought it would really go good if I worked in Upland, because I would be around the Christian students. Um, they moved me to Upland, so I go from a barista to a manager. The guy who offers me my job was the general manager, and he went to be a principal. So they make me general manager in a couple months. So all of a sudden, I'm managing $300,000 worth of business. You know, I got keys to a safe. Like, you know, my life just totally was transformed in about a year and a half. Really started sharing my testimony. I'm wearing an ankle bracelet. People are coming into the coffee shop, and I get to tell them this crazy story. You know what I'm saying? I should be in prison, and I don't look like the guy that's a drug dealer. And so they really, they get that, they see the ankle bracelet, and you could see their eyebrows like, this don't add up. So it just gave me an opportunity to witness, bro. And I witnessed to everyone, and that came in. And here's a crazy thing, that a student had come over, and I witnessed to him, and he was the editor of their paper, right? So all of a sudden he's like, bro, I got to write this testimony down and share it, with everyone. And I'm like, praise God. I'm like, that's awesome, dude. He writes it. Yeah, he writes it. And then a couple weeks later, he comes in there and he's like, man, you're not going to believe this. And I'm like, what's going on, bro? And he said, there was like 14,000 people that viewed your testimony, bro. And I was like, you know, I thought that was it really, you know what I'm saying? I was like, that's cool. And he said, man, like normally it's less than 1,000. And I'm like, yeah, the cool factor, you know what I'm saying? And the magnitude, it just kind of hit me like, that's a lot, dude. 2 weeks later, here comes a film crew. Like, I'm on house arrest. A film crew approaches me from Taylor University, and they said, I want to videotape your testimony. And I'm like a documentary. We want to do a documentary and film this documentary. And I'm like, that's crazy. Let me check with house arrest to see if people can follow me, or you know what I'm saying? You can come to my house. So I cleared it with the house arrest, and they allowed a documentary to be filmed. And if you go on YouTube, you could watch it. It's Brian Blevins' Freedom. And they won some awards and some stuff from documentary. So
Yeah. So quick question. I'm a coffee aficionado myself. I love espresso. I've got a Breville barista, barista plus machine in my house. And so every day I have your espresso Americano. What's your favorite coffee drink?
oh, bro, I like frozen blended coffee. So we did a thing called an Uncle Joe's, and we used polar powder, cold brew, and it would be blended. So the frozen blended, bro, that was my heart.
I'm straight up, man. I drink either a double shot of espresso or Americano, black, no cream. But Brian, so what I'm hearing in your story, man, there's so much to unpack, but like to kind of take this home and maybe connect the dots. I'm hearing this thread, right, of purpose and service to other people, right? From the moment you got out, even when you didn't know whether you were going to go to jail or not go to jail, I'm engaged, celebrate recovery, I'm helping others. The pursuit of the addiction counselor degree. You told me beforehand that you're almost late to the call because you're a peer specialist, and you had to go connect with somebody. Recovery home. I mean, all of this stuff. I just hear this passionate pursuit of service, and I'm one of those big people. I've always shared the quote. I don't know whether I made it up or I stole it from somebody, but I've always said that freedom from addiction is not a destination, it's a starting point, right? It is really the launching pad for life, right? Once we get the freedom, then the Lord begins to establish purpose in us. And one of the things I think I've seen, I worked with Teen Challenge for 13 years of my life. I'm a former addict myself, 18 years since I used to do meth. And the one thing about my life and what I've noticed from other people that I've walked with, those who seem to get this fire in their belly for purpose and to make their lives about something other than themselves tend to experience the longest lasting freedom, tend to struggle with relapse less, right? I mean, it's when addiction is selfishness. It's selfish driven behavior. It's about our needs, our wants in the moment. And the way to break that I've always thought is service, is let me make my life not about self so I can break some of those patterns of selfishness. And so what was it for you that started to spark that drive for service, right? I mean, and how pivotal has that been in your freedom even today, all these years later?
Man, so yeah, just surrounding myself with like-minded people, and people on fire for freedom and recovery, or purpose and hope. All of a sudden I knew it wasn't my will or my thinking. Like, there was so many things happening in my life that I knew there was always something more. So the amount of hope, you know, that I would get from hearing other people share, watching other people's testimonies, other people's stories, connecting with people, not wanting surface relationships, but actually caring about if you have a family, going deeper. And you know what I'm saying, and it's just, I didn't want anything surface anymore. It's like I wanted real brothers, real relationship, and I longed for family, and I just really found that in recovery, and I found a way to love me. And that was the biggest thing, is I could never love myself because of all the stuff that I did. And once that I found out, that what God's love was, what His grace was, what His mercy was, then I could love myself, and then I could forgive myself. And forgiving myself was the hardest thing in the world. I could forgive you. It was no problem for me to forgive the people that told on me and all that stuff. The hard thing was to forgive me, and then just to really learn what the cross was, what it represented, and the freedom that was tied to that. That I could love me because He came in my mess, right, and created some sort of message, not for me, but for other people, and put me on a pathway that is undeniable, not my path, or not the path I would have even picked. It was like these doors just started to spring open, and he would put people in my path, and vice versa. So I just started networking uh with people, but I learned how to love unconditionally. Like, I don't care, like, what you did, what your pain, like any of that. I could connect with somebody one on one. I'm able to meet somebody right where they are, and have compassion and sympathy, and be able to speak into whatever situation, crisis, because of the experiences. And recovery is connection. You know what I'm saying? So now I know how to love, and I know how to connect. And I think when you learn how to love and connect, and then it's that thing of finding balance. Because look, I was addicted to ministry. I got married on house arrest. I definitely say probably don't do that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Uh, that 6 years. Yeah, three. No, so when I was 46 years old, bro, I had another baby. So I have a 3.5 year old baby. His name's Noah James, and I have a new opportunity to be a present dad. And you know what I'm saying? That's what I am today. And so I get to say, oh yeah, totally, totally. He wanted a sober dad, and that's what he got. And he went through this little funk of wanting to play video games and do all those things, and I kicked him out of my house. And you know what I'm saying? I was like, if you're not going to go to school, he dropped out of school. If you're not going to go to school and you're not going to work, you're not going to live under my roof. Like, I really put my foot down into, you're going to be a man. So he went off and made his choices, and went back with his mother, and found some struggles. Then he came back to me, and had to clean the house, had to do all this other stuff. And I said, isn't it funny that that's what I wanted you to do? You know what I'm saying? When you were living here. And I said, if you want to be a man and if you want to help your mom, you'll go to work and you'll pay her bills because that's what men do. Men provide. And if you want to grow up and if you want to be a provider, you're going to work. And that's what you're going to do. And he said, well, take me. And, I knew a lot of people. I know, people in the field I work, and we got him a job the next day, and he's been working at the spot, where he's working. So my son's doing really well. My family's doing really well. But like I said, I was the founder of a ministry, and my wife really wasn't sold. She wanted the attention, my attention, and ministry got the most of my attention. So there was a moment, my wife's in recovery as well. She works in the jail with the IRAX program, so she teaches matrix groups, and she's a powerful woman, not only of the Lord, but in the rooms of recovery as well. And she relapsed when I was 1 year. When we were married 1 year, she relapsed and went to heroin. And you want to talk about some rocky times. And, she moved out, went to rehab. She had an encounter when she was in rehab. And, people told me to leave my wife. And I made a vow, a covenant in sickness, you know, until death do you part, and sickness and in health. And God really spoke to my heart, like, who are you, Brian? All the stuff that you've been through, and it made our relationship stronger. We had a baby, which I'm 50, bro, and to have a 3.5-year-old, like, that's God put work ethic in my life. And I think, as far as, what's going on
You
in
need
my
it with a 3-year-old. Yeah.
but I'm young. People say you don't look 50, and I'm like, yeah, right. Well, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I don't know how.
Yes. So Brian, let me ask you one final question to kind of wrap this up. And you said a powerful piece earlier about learning to love yourself again, and on really that being the basis, right? I mean, the Bible says we're to love our neighbor as ourself, and if we have a bad view of self and we have poor love for us, then it ultimately impacts how we love other people, and so, I mean, what did you learn about loving yourself? You know what I'm saying, and and what lessons could you possibly share from your journey to getting to that place that might be helpful for those that are struggling with that?
So I would have to separate myself as Brian on drugs and Brian not on drugs. And the Brian not on drugs is a kind, caring, compassionate, do anything for you. And then it's Jekyll and Hyde. And Brian on drugs will rob, cheat, steal. So it's like an alter ego. And I had to really look at myself in two different people and say, look, this is you, separated from your disease, addiction, or whatever, people want to call it. Like, that's not me. And you changed your lifestyle. Like, and God changed your heart. And so I just really had to look at myself as a new creation, that I was born again, and that dude was dead. You know what I'm saying? So that Brian, what I'm saying, is dead. So when I learned that I had a new life, you know what I'm saying? That's what recovery, offers us, a new life, and there's promises and everything involved. So when you see all those promises start being fulfilled, it's like your identity really changes. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to call myself an addict anymore. You know what I'm saying? I really, going through NA and all these other programs, like, I always want to identify, not separate myself, and not make myself different than somebody else that really don't understand why I think the way I think. So I'm really careful, like, what room I'm in to say, like, what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't want to separate myself, from programs or whatever it is. But it's like, I'm not that anymore. You see what I'm saying? So because I'm not that anymore, I'm a hard worker. Like, I'm grateful. Like, there's so much stuff that I found, and so many tools that I've been able to develop. The Bible tells us to seek ye the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. But all these things are just our basic needs. So when I surrender and I submit to him, and my basic needs are met, like, that's enough, bro. Like, I don't need a new car. I don't need like all this stuff. So really, I look at, with a lot of people, it's an MRT thing. It's like worries, wants, and needs. Like, what are my wants and what are my needs? So if somebody really looks at their wants, it's like, do they need it? You see what I'm saying? So if you really break that thing down to wants and needs, like, I don't want nothing, bro. And the only thing that I need is more of him. So the times that I'm not in balance or whatever that looks like, it's like, what do I want and what do I need? So I can simplify things, and I know how to talk to people. You know what I mean? It's just a gift that he's given to make things really simple, because if it wasn't simple, there's no way I would get nothing, bro. It's like, you got to dumb things way down for me. And I think being in relationship, it's just learning and growing, and it's like planting. When you plant a field, you have to break the ground. You got to do the soil. You got to plant the seed. You got to water the seed. You got to wait. You got to, and then it grows. And like, there's so much involved in our recovery in our lives, that if we simplify things and not make things too much for somebody, because everyone's overwhelmed in the first place. So it's like, where can you get somebody? First, you get them safe, you feed their belly, you know what I mean? You sit down and talk to them one on one. So you get them to a point to where they're comfortable. Because, if somebody ate, something, if you're hungry, if you're tired, if you're all these things, it's harder. So it's really, coming into people's lives and figuring out basic needs. And then once the basic needs are found in people's lives, like sober living, you know what I mean? Residential treatment, like, getting somebody safe, getting somebody clothes, like, taking people and getting socks and underwear, and the things that people take for granted. Like, really, it's the little things that turn into something bigger in someone's life. Just checking on somebody and saying, hey, you doing good today? People don't have people reaching out anymore. They stopped doing that. If you can take time, I work two jobs. I started a food truck business. Like, I didn't even get into like really like where I'm at today, and what's going on really, but just connecting with people and continuing to give them hope, but just be real, just be vulnerable, just be transparent. uh, don't play like you got everything together, because you probably don't. You know what I'm saying? You got accountability, and that's everything, bro.
And what's the name of your food truck business?
It's called Chubby Burgers.
Nice, fantastic. And and you're in Indiana. I'll put some links down below. I know earlier you mentioned the documentary, so I'll go hunt that down and also share some of that other stuff down below. But Brian, man, I appreciate it. And I could talk to you for another 2 hours. I try to I try to keep the conversations around an hour because people have a tolerance level there on YouTube and so on. But man, I
But when you do part two, I got some more crazy stuff to share
that's
with you. So
awesome.
you're going to have to do a part two, bro.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, man. It's an honor, to be able to chat and hear you share your story, with our audience and on. Man, you guys that are watching, you can check out those links in the description below and connect with Brian and his food truck business and check out that documentary as well. On Brian, thanks so much, man. I appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate you. It's nice to meet you, bro.